right, guys. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cover the basic information that's involved in cellular respiration. It's important for us to cover the basics so that we can build on that basic information with the other topics that are in our cellular respiration unit. So the first thing that we want to focus on is the importance of understanding ATP for living organisms. Every organism requires ATP, requires that energy in order for it to stay alive. The reason that it requires that energy is that it's going to require it to be able to sustain its life functions. It's going to get that energy, most likely, from carbohydrates. Our basic carbohydrates, in the most simple form, we're talking about sugars. Those monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, all of those things that give us a whole lot of energy when we consume them. Not everything is going to require as much energy as we do, but every living organism performs cellular respiration. So, all living things do cellular respiration. It's important for us to remember that because even plants are going to perform cellular respiration once they get that glucose from the photosynthesis. Remember, in photosynthesis, what we did was we took light, we turned the light into temporary energy, and then we turned that temporary energy into glucose, or food. What the plant does with that food is the same thing that you do with your food. You need to use that food to turn it into energy. The way that we get our glucose is from what we eat. So when we talk about a variety of foods, we're talking about breads, pasta, grains, right? Maybe we're even talking about a candy bar, right? Any sort of carbohydrate or any sort of food in general that your body takes in, you're trying to get the glucose out of that food because glucose is the #1 source of energy for living things. So this whole process is called cellular respiration. Our most basic definition, we're converting organic compounds, specifically glucose, which is a carb, into ATP. And when we talk about ATP, we're talking about adenosine triphosphate. Yes, I expect you to know that word. And like I said, all organisms are going to perform cellular respiration. So, we're going to take a little sidetrack and talk about ATP here, adenosine triphosphate. All right, this is going to be basically your energy for your body. It's going to be where energy is stored, how energy is transported, how energy is released, all for organism survival. It's made of a sugar, a phosphate, 3 phosphates, and a base. You guys should remember I told you guys that your body is the sugar because you're all so sweet. One arm is the phosphates, the other arm is the base. Whenever we talked about the particular type of organic compound that ATP is. And ATP is a nucleic acid, which therefore means that what it's made of is a nucleotide, a sugar, phosphate, base, joined together. In this case, though, it's 3 phosphates. So, the sugar, if your body is the sugar, that means both of your arms are going to come off of your body. So that means that the base and the phosphate are going to come off of the sugar, which you'll see in this picture. Our sugar, which is ribose, is the center anchor point. Our base, which is always adenine, it's important for us to notice that. Notice that adenosine is based off of the base component, and then our 3 phosphates, triphosphate. This is just a structural picture of ATP. The important thing for you guys to recognize is that the way that you're going to release that energy is by breaking a bond between the last 2 phosphates. Breaking the bond between the last 2 phosphates, how the energy is going to be released. So, if we draw a picture of our nucleotide again, we've got our 3 phosphates. If we break the bond that's right there, All right? That's where all of our energy gets released. But what's left is still adenosine, but now we're a diphosphate. We've got two phosphates. So if we look, a TP becomes a DP, and then that lone floating phosphate. That's how we release the energy. Once we release that energy, ADP can go back to the mitochondria, because remember, mighty mitochondria is responsible for making the energy, making the ATP out of our food, and the ADP can be recharged. So easiest way, it's like a rechargeable battery, all right? When there are 3 phosphates, it's charged. When there are 2 phosphates, it's uncharged. Just like we talked about in photosynthesis. So the chemical equation for cellular respiration is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 yields 6CO2 plus 6H2O and ATP. We should know now what each of those molecules is. So our reactants. Our reactants are what will react. So in this case, what is going to react? Well, our oxygen is going to react, and our glucose is going to react. All right? What's going to react should be on the left side. Products. Products are what we end with, or what's on the right side. So in this case, our CO2, our water, and ultimately our ATP, which is our big goal. All right, the goal here is to get energy out of your food. And then in relation to photosynthesis, well, when we talked about photosynthesis, the equation for photosynthesis was that we had 6 waters plus 6 carbon dioxide yielded, and we put sunlight in as our activation energy. And what we got out were 6 oxygens and a glucose molecule. If we look, we're pretty much backwards. The only difference here is what form our energy is in. In photosynthesis, we had sunlight energy. Now, we've got chemical energy in the form of ATP. There's a little video there that you can watch. So, this is basically how your mitochondria works, cellular respiration. There are 2 different types of cellular respiration. We've got aerobic cellular respiration, which requires oxygen. Aero, all right, in science, specifically means with O2, or using O2. Anaerobic does not require oxygen. When we put an "and" in front of the arrow, all right, the "and" equates to a "not." So we're meaning not with O2. So there are two different processes. We have one process where we can convert our food into energy when there is oxygen available, and we have another process that's available when there's no oxygen. Another video for you guys to be able to watch. So our general overview of aerobic cellular respiration, all right, is that it's going to require oxygen, just like I said. It's going to occur in the mitochondria for eukaryotic cells, and remember, you are eukaryotic. Eukaryotic meaning with a nucleus, plant cells, animal cells. And in the case of prokaryotic cells, which was our fancy word that we said for bacteria, it's going to happen in the cell membrane. The steps involved are something called glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and the ETC, or the electron transport chain. In anaerobic respiration, it's not going to require any oxygen. This is going to happen in the cytoplasm of both eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. And in this case, our steps are going to be glycolysis and fermentation.